Here we are in another early JK with an LS3 brand new crate motor. It got a game changer, metal cloak suspension system, has a Switch Pros S-Pod setup, not Switch Pros, one of the other ones, it's not the S-Pod. Got an air compressor, dual ARB, some other options. Now this is an LS3, which is still an excellent motor in the JKs. If you have an early JK, they're great, but as time marches on, we're moving into the Gen 5s, and we have to be realistic. The Gen 5s are the future. This engine essentially is similar to the 1955 small block Chevy. Way back then, they were developing technologies like core casting in minimal amount of cores to save money, and overhead valve designs which were better performance, and combustion chambers that could run on higher octane for more power. By the 60s, emissions became important, so again the combustion chambers began to change and the motors began to get leaned out. I remember some of the early engines with road draft tubes were just venting the crankcases right to the atmosphere. So things have come a long, long way, but essentially if you look at this motor, the architecture and the basic design overhead valve is very, very similar to a 1955 Chevrolet small block engine. And that engine ran all the way up through the 1990s. When they came out with the Gen 3, it took a great leap in technology, and we got double-digit improvements on economy and performance. If you look at a 90s K motor 350 and then compare it to a 5.3 Gen 3 engine, you're going to find that the Gen 3 engine has a lot more horsepower, gets much better mileage. However, the basic architecture of the motor got stronger, the combustion chamber design and the emissions were greatly improved. In fact, now in the Gen 4 engines and Gen 5 engines, we're no longer running secondary air systems, we're no longer running EGR valves for the most part. So everything got better. Performance, economy, emissions. Getting back to this build, this game changer suspension really drives nice. The LS3 has great power, sounds really good, and this is an excellent swap. This swap is running our billet accessory drive, factory GM harness, easy mounts, you know, the whole 9 yards. This does have a slightly improved MOCAN module. Our MOCAN module has evolved quite a bit, and essentially this is the same MOCAN module as the previous one, but it has dip switches so that the user can program it. That means whatever configuration you have, 2007, 2016, automatic air conditioning, manual transmission, whatever, you can configure this MOCAN module without having to send it back to us. So we're going to take this JK up to the trail, see how this LS3 does. So most of us have a goal in common, and that is to make our JKs fun to drive. It doesn't really matter if you're a mall crawler with 20-inch rims or if you're running out in the desert with 40s and double throw suspension. We just wanted to have enough power to make our JKs get down the road, get to our destination in style. I think we've all had that experience of the 3.8 or the 3.6 being inadequate, trying to pass on the highway, or your wife's driving it. In fact, my wife wouldn't drive our original 09 Rubicon because she didn't feel it was safe. She couldn't get up to speed on the highway. So we all pretty much have the same goal of getting a engine or more power into the JK, but we don't want to sacrifice a couple of things. We don't want to sacrifice drivability. When I mean drivability, it's how the throttle responds, it's how the engine sounds, it's how the transmission shifts. You can put a power adder on your 3.8, like let's say a cold air intake and a chip, and now you got a little 3.6 screaming to move your heavy JK. So that can be annoying. I personally never like the way the V6 revved up 3, 4, 5,000 RPM on the highway. It just doesn't feel right. You can put a supercharger or turbocharger on, but again, not only are you revving up a small displacement engine, but you got a transmission that's probably not ideal for that application, because the 1-bar versus 2-bar operating system and torque management, you might get hunting, surging, cruise control operation that's not right. So there's compromises. Let's show you a little bit about Tapshift here. So I'm going down this trail, I'm in 4-wheel drive low, and we're got a little bit too much speed going here, plus I'm going to go down this little trail here. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring it back. Now you see it's indicating I'm in 3rd right now, so I'm going to bump it into 2nd. And here's one of the things, you notice I'm spinning the wheel. If I had Tapshift on the steering wheel, it'd be kind of hard to tell which way is up and which way is down. So we're in second right now, and for the steep part of this trail, that's probably going to work just fine. So let's, not on the throttle at all, just letting it go. Now I'm going a little slow. I'm going to tap shift up. We're going to tap shift into third. Okay, and that was a mistake because I'm going too fast. So now we're going to tap shift back to second. This is just about right. Now we're down at the bottom. Let's put it back in drive. And we are a automatic again. Running these trails with a 6L80 and an LS is kind of like cheating. The transmission has such a smooth and linear power output, as does the engine, that you just kind of float over stuff and you don't really notice the engine ever struggling or revving up. It just is a smooth linear power delivery with no lurching, which means you keep constant wheel speed and you won't lose traction on obstacles. This Metal Cloak Game Changer is doing a really good job, considering the tires are pumped up to 35 pounds. Pretty hard out there, and it's in the 40s, so I'm not getting a whole lot of good drone footage. Sorry about that. The purpose of this test drive is to shake these Jeeps up, identify any issues, interferences. When we're done with this test drive, it's going back to the shop and getting a thorough inspection top and bottom. Remember, we're in 4 low here. One of the attributes of the 6L80 is it has a 0.6 overdrive. So even in 4 low, you can get some pretty good speed up. I'm touching the brakes a little bit, but overall the 6L80 is doing a really good job of holding my speed. And it's controlling the shifts, the transmission, through RPM match shifting, which means as it goes up and down in the gear range, it's RPM match shifting. So I don't even notice it's shifting at all, but it is. It's just a great combination. And now we have a little obstacle here, so let's bring it back into tap. We're in first. Now here's something interesting. Right now I'm in first. Let's say I know that I want to have a maximum gear of second going down this hill. So I bump it into second. Now what's going to happen is I'm going to take off and it's going to shift up to second but not shift out of second. When I get to the bottom of the hill, I can bump it up again. So we're in second now. You guys probably didn't notice it, but right at launch it went into second. And this is pretty good. I'm not on the brakes. Now down here at the bottom, when the weight of this vehicle is no longer moving it forward, like right here, let's bump up to third, fourth. Now what I've done is I've set my maximum gear to fourth. So when I get on this little trail here, in fact, let's go to fifth. Let's bump her up to fifth. I know this trail is going to open up. What this is indicating is the maximum gear that I've selected. And I am now in fifth. Now here's something interesting. Let's stop real quick. Let's take our arrow force and go to current gear. Now, notice that the current gear is 1, but top gear is 5. We have got this into a mode where we have selected our maximum gear. However, we're in first. So what's going to happen is when I take off, you're going to see current gear change on this Aeroforce gauge, but you're going to see the maximum gear stay set to whatever I want. Let's just set it back to fourth. So notice that we're set to 4 and current gear is 1. Let's take off, run 2, 3, 4. Now it's going to stay in fourth until I do something. Now watch both of these gauges when I downshift. You notice they both went to 3. Let's do that again. 2. So now let's come to a stop. The right gauge is indicating maximum gear because that's the mode we're in. The left gauge is indicating current gear. Let's bring our maximum gear up to 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. Now let's put it back in drive. You notice that the indicator is showing drive while the current gear is showing 6 because 6 is the drive gear in this mode. Now a lot of questions I get are, do I need to run in 4-wheel drive low as much as I did with the V6? And the answer is absolutely not. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring it into neutral. We're going to come up back into 2-wheel drive high. I've got all the torque in the world right now. Now look how easy it is to build wheel speed up. Barely touching the throttle. I can't feel the shifts. It's like a 1-speed. And we're just floating over these rocks. Sorry guys, we got some. This vehicle has had the axles done, so we got some axles in the back. Axle shafts. Faster than this, and a lot of you guys drive slower than this. I'll be honest, when I take my JK out on the trail, I'm easy on it. I drive it like a baby carriage. I usually have my family with me, and my goal is to get from point A to point B. It doesn't matter how fast you go if you don't get there. But the reality is, in the long term, if this vehicle were to go 100,000 miles, you got to make sure the durability is going to be there. So to identify any conflicts, interferences, or weak points, you just got to shake them up a bit. Now, so we're in 6th gear. The 6L80 will always try to choose the tallest gear that it can operate in. And because this engine has so much torque, that's usually going to be top gear. Well, that'll just test drive. Everything worked perfectly. We're heading back to the shop. And this customer is scheduled to pick this Jeep up this afternoon.